Okay, this is the video for Lesson 8 Special Order. And in this video, we're going to look at the patterns of different types of multiplication. Right now, we're focusing on double distribution, and we're going to look at some shortcuts in a moment. So we're going to do x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. When I combine like terms, a negative 3 and a positive 3 cancel each other, and I'm left with x squared minus 9. Okay, moving on to block 2. I have x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 3 is 9. Combining like terms, I get x squared plus 6x plus 9. And the last one, I have x times x, which is x squared, x times negative 3, which is negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Combining like terms, I get x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now, when I look at these problems, all of them have x, all of them have 3. I noticed that block 2 and block 3 are very similar, but block 1 is different. Block 1 does not have this middle term. So look at the original problem for block 1 versus the original problem for block 2 and block 3. What do you notice? Okay, what I notice is the signs do not match. And here the signs match, the signs match. When the signs do not match, that means I'm going to have a positive of a number and a negative of that same number. And we know that when we have a positive and a negative of the same number, they cancel. Therefore, I do not have a middle term. So the shortcut is, if everything in the parentheses matches except for the sign, you can simply square the first and square the last. Okay, now let's look at these two. The answers. The beginning matches, the end matches. The middle is the only thing different. The middle gets its sign from the sign in the parentheses. Okay, so I simply square the first term. I square the last term, x squared and the 9. To get the middle, I have 3. I have 2 of them, so 2 times 3 gives me the 6. I have 2 negative 3s, so negative 3 times 2 is negative 6x. Okay, so we're going to talk about the rule for that when we get here, but let's quickly go through a few. Right here, I notice the signs don't match, so I'm going to go ahead and square the first and square the last, and it gets a subtraction in between. All of these follow the pattern of block 1, so we're going to focus on that pattern. A positive and a negative, the same thing. 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 1 squared is 1, and they're different signs, so negative. Okay, so the rule is you square the first, you square the last, put a subtraction in between. Okay, now we're going to focus on the ones where they all add. So you're going to still square the first. You're going to square the last. So x squared, 4 squared. And then I have 2 4s, so 2 times 4 gives me my 8x. Okay, block 2. Again, the signs match, which means I'm going to keep my middle. So I'm going to square the first. So 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 1 times 1 is 1. Now, I have, we look at this. I have 5 and another 5, which is a 10x. And we have to be careful because it's simple right now because this is the 1, but later it's going to change. So I'm going to be a little bit more specific in the rule here. So we square the first, we square the last. And we take the 2 terms, we multiply them together, and we double it because we see it 2 times. Now, I'm not going to spend all the time with this one because my answers are going to be the same except for the sign in the middle is going to change. So simply, we're going to have an x squared minus 8x plus 16. Everything stays the same. The only thing that switched was the sign. So 25x squared minus 10x plus 1. And then this would be a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so the special rule. If my parentheses, everything in my parentheses matches except for the symbol in between, I'm going to square the first, square the last, put a subtraction in between. If, however, the signs match, I'm still going to square the first, I'm going to square the last, I'm going to take the two terms, and I'm going to multiply them together and times them by 2. The sign that goes here is controlled by the sign in the parentheses. So if I had minus parentheses, this would be a minus. Now, there's one way that I kind of remember this, but it's a bad way because it teaches you a bad habit. So when these repeat, this is a squared. So I think square both terms and then times the terms times 2. But that's a bad habit because this doesn't mean times 2. It means to repeat the parentheses 2 times. Okay, now that we know the special rules, it can help us factor quickly so that we don't have to make our factor x's all the time. So what I notice about A, D, and G is that none of them have a middle term. So when I look at the special rules, the only one that doesn't have a middle term is when my signs don't agree. So already I know I'm going to have a plus and a minus, plus and a minus, plus and a minus. So how do I make an x squared? With an x and an x. How do I make a 4? With a 2 and a 2. How do I make an x squared? With an x and an x. How do I make 49? 7 and 7. How do I make 4x squared? 2x, 2x. How do I make 9? 3 and 3. Okay, this one I know I have a middle term, and this is very important. We're going to focus on the last number right now. This is important because it is a perfect square. So, how do I make 4? With 2. How do I make 49? With 7. How do I make 9? With 3. Okay, so 2 times 2 is 4. Is 2 plus 2 4? Yes. So my answer is x plus 2 times x plus 2. 7 times 7 is 49. Is 7 plus 7 14? Yes. So x plus 7 times x plus 7. All right. 3 times 3 is 9. Is 3 plus 3 12? Uh-oh, no it's not. Okay, so let's look. Well, this is special too because I have another perfect square over here. This is 2. So 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 plus 6 is 12. So my answer is 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3. Okay, if you notice, this and this, B and C, are the same problem, except for the middle term is subtraction. So all I need to do is turn all my parentheses into, you guessed it, subtraction. So it's going to be the same answer, x minus 2. Simply, if I take the square root of this, it's 2, but 2 plus 2 is not a negative 4. But if I make it a negative 2, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Okay? X minus 7 times x minus 7. And some students ask, well, can't I just write it like this? By all means, you can. We were just practicing breaking it down today. And then this one is 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3. Okay, so I did a couple extra problems. Let's look at these. Okay, this has a middle term, so I'm going to focus on the end. I always test to see if it's perfect, and 16 is perfect. It gives me 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 2 times 4, or 4 plus 4, is not negative 8. So we're going to switch this to a negative and test it. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8. So my answer is x minus 4 times x minus 4. Okay, the middle term is missing. That means I'm arguing. I can't meet in the middle. So I'm going to have a positive and I'm going to have a negative. Okay, 16x squared. How do I make that? With a 4x and a 4x. Square root of 16 is 4. How do I make 49? With a 7 and a 7. Again, when there's no middle term, my signs need to disagree. We're not meeting in the middle. Okay, last problem. Okay, I look at the end. It's perfect. It's a 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 plus 5 is not 20. So I go to the front. Oh, it is also perfect. 2. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 plus 10 gives me my 20. So my answer is 2x plus 5, and let's repeat it again because I have a set of perfects. There you go.